27 years have passed since that autumn in 1998, and I still wake some mornings with the phantom sensation of warm air against my palm. People assume that working as a facilities manager for London's most exclusive private clubs means witnessing nothing more scandalous than aging aristocrats falling asleep over their port. They would be wrong. The Whitmore Club occupied a Georgian townhouse in Mayfair, its membership roster reading like a directory of British power. Old money, new money, political influence, and industrial fortunes, all gathered beneath those cream-coloured walls to conduct business that never appeared in parliamentary records. I had managed the building's operations for 6 years when Lord Pemberton summoned me to his private study that October evening. "Harrison," he said, not looking up from the architectural plans spread across his mahogany desk, "we're conducting a complete structural survey. Insurance requirements. I need you to verify every room matches these original blueprints from 1847. The plans were yellowed with age, their ink faded but still legible. Every door, every closet, every storage space. Document any discrepancies." I nodded, accustomed to such requests. These old buildings shifted over time. Walls were moved, spaces subdivided. What seemed unusual was the intensity in Lord Pemberton's pale blue eyes when he added, "And Harrison, if you encounter any irregularities, you will report them directly to me, not to the board, not to anyone else." That night, I began my systematic inspection on the ground floor, working methodically through drawing rooms, the library, the billiard room. Everything aligned perfectly with the blueprints. But buildings, like the men who inhabit them, often conceal more than they reveal. The second floor housed the dining facilities and private meeting rooms, spaces where cabinet ministers and bank chairmen gathered for conversations that shaped policy without ever being recorded in official minutes. Each room corresponded precisely to the architectural plans, down to the placement of windows and the width of doorways. It was on the third floor that I encountered the first discrepancy. According to the blueprints, the corridor should have extended 32 feet before terminating at the back wall. Yet when I measured, I found only 28 feet. 4 feet of space had vanished somewhere between the architectural drawings and reality. I examined the wall more carefully, running my hands along the dark wood paneling that had been installed sometime in the 1920s. The craftsmanship was impeccable. Each panel fitted seamlessly against its neighbors. The grain matched perfectly. Nothing suggested a hidden door or concealed opening. Yet the mathematics were undeniable. 4 feet of space existed somewhere beyond that wall. The air in the corridor felt different that evening, though I couldn't immediately identify why. London's October chill had penetrated the building despite the heating system, yet this particular section of hallway seemed to retain warmth. Not dramatically, but enough that I removed my jacket while taking measurements. When I reported my findings to Lord Pemberton the following morning, his reaction was measured but telling. He set down his coffee cup with deliberate care and asked 3 specific questions. Had I mentioned the discrepancy to anyone? Had I attempted to access whatever space lay beyond the wall? And, most peculiarly, had I noticed anything unusual about the temperature? "How the temperature, sir?" I had learned over 6 years that Lord Pemberton never asked idle questions. "The atmosphere," he clarified, steepling his fingers beneath his chin. "Sometimes these old buildings retain impressions, particularly in spaces that have been modified. An interesting choice of words for what appeared to be solid wall. Lord Pemberton instructed me to continue my survey, but to pay particular attention to any other spatial discrepancies. He also requested that I conduct my inspections after club hours, when the building stood empty, save for the night security staff. The 4th floor revealed 2 more irregularities. The men's changing rooms, according to the original plans, should have been 12 by 16 feet. In reality, they measured 12 by 12. Another 4 feet had disappeared, this time from a space directly above the 3rd floor anomaly. The pattern was becoming clear. Something ran vertically through the building's core, a space that existed in physical reality, but not on any official documentation. More disturbing was the temperature phenomenon. Each area where space had vanished felt noticeably warmer than the surrounding rooms. Not the artificial warmth of central heating, but something more organic, as if the missing spaces were breathing warm air through the walls. On the fifth evening of my survey, while examining the fourth-floor discrepancy, I pressed my ear against the paneling. Beyond the wall, I heard something that made my hands tremble as I packed away my measuring tape. It was faint, almost inaudible but unmistakable. The sound of human voices, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Voices that spoke no English words I could recognize. Sleep became elusive after that evening. I found myself lying awake, replaying the sound of those whispered voices, trying to convince myself they had been echoes from neighboring buildings or the settling of old timber. But the Whitmore Club stood isolated on its corner lot, separated from adjacent structures by gardens and service alleys. And old wood creaks and groans. It doesn't whisper in organized cadences. Lord Pemberton seemed to anticipate my report before I delivered it. When I described the voices, he nodded as if confirming something he already suspected. "How many floors have you completed, Harrison?" "On 4, sir." "The top floor remains. Leave that for now. I want you to focus on the spaces you've identified. Map them precisely. Measure the dimensions of what appears to be missing. Create a detailed record." He paused, studying my face carefully. "And Harrison, this survey is now classified as a private matter for the membership committee. No written reports in the club files." That afternoon, I created a shadow map of the Whitmore Club, documenting the invisible spaces that existed within its walls. The pattern was consistent, 4 feet of width running from the 3rd floor to the 5th, creating a vertical shaft approximately 8 by 4 feet, large enough for a person to move through, if such access existed. But access had to exist somewhere. Spaces don't simply materialize within buildings. Someone had created this hidden area, designed it for a specific purpose, concealed it so thoroughly that even the club's management seemed uncertain of its exact nature. The warm air suggested active use, recent occupation. Whatever this space housed, it was very much alive. 3 weeks into my investigation, I developed a ritual. Each evening after the club closed, I would position myself at different points along the hidden space, listening for voices, testing for temperature variations, searching for any detail that might reveal how to access what lay beyond those perfectly crafted walls. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday evening in November. While examining the 3rd floor paneling under the beam of my flashlight, I noticed something I had missed during daylight inspections. One section of wood grain didn't match the others quite as perfectly as I had initially thought. The difference was subtle, almost imperceptible, but consistent with a panel that had been removed and replaced multiple times. I pressed various points along this section, testing for hidden latches or pressure points. But when I stepped back and examined the panel from different angles, I realized the issue wasn't mechanical. It was temporal. This section of paneling was slightly newer than the surrounding woodwork, installed perhaps 10 or 15 years after the original 1920s renovation. The warm air seemed stronger near this panel, and when I held my hand close to the wall, I could feel a gentle current flowing through gaps so narrow they were invisible to the naked eye. Air was moving from somewhere behind that wall, carrying with it the faint scent of leather, tobacco, and something else, something medicinal, almost antiseptic. That night, I made a decision that would haunt me for decades. I retrieved a thin-bladed knife from the club's kitchen and carefully worked it along the edges of the suspicious panel, testing for hidden catches or concealed hinges. What I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about the Whitmore Club. The panel wasn't locked or latched. It was held in place by magnetic catches, modern hardware that had been retrofitted into the vintage woodwork. When the magnets released, the panel swung inward on silent hinges, revealing not a wall but a narrow opening that led into darkness. Warm air flowed from the opening like breath from living lungs. The medicinal scent mixed with human occupation, sweat, exertion, fear. My flashlight revealed a cramped passage, extending into shadows. Every instinct demanded I report this to Lord Pemberton, but curiosity compelled me forward. I squeezed through, finding myself in a vertical shaft as predicted. Metal rungs created a ladder extending into darkness. Voices became clearer, originating below with mechanical noises, rhythmic tapping. Whatever activities occurred in these depths were happening now, 11:30 Tuesday when Whitmore Club stood empty. I began my descent, each rung carrying me deeper into a world that existed parallel to the elegant club rooms above. The world that I was beginning to realize, might be the true heart of the Whitmore Club's power. The descent felt endless, though my flashlight revealed only 12 rungs before reaching a horizontal passage. The walls here were older than the paneling above. Original brick from the building's 1840s construction, damp with condensation and decades of London fog that had somehow penetrated even this sealed space. The voices grew more distinct as I moved forward, though the words remained unintelligible. Not foreign languages, I realized, but English spoken in hushed, urgent whispers that distance and echo had rendered incomprehensible. The mechanical sounds resolved into something more specific, the rhythmic operation of machinery, punctuated by metallic clicks and the soft hiss of pressurized air. 20 feet along the passage, I encountered my first glimpse of light. Not electric illumination, but the warm, flickering glow of gas flames. The medicinal scent grew overpowering, mixed now with chemical odors I couldn't identify. My hands trembled as I extinguished my flashlight and proceeded by the ambient glow ahead. The passage opened into a chamber that defied every assumption I had made about the Whitmore Club's purpose. Banks of glass vessels lined the walls, each containing pale liquid, and connected by rubber tubing to central apparatus that hummed with electrical power. The warm air originated from heating elements designed to maintain precise temperatures for whatever processes were taking place here. But it was the occupants of this hidden laboratory that made my breath catch in my throat. 3 men in formal evening wear, working with practiced efficiency around equipment that belonged in a hospital, not a gentleman's club. I recognized 2 of the 3 men immediately, Sir Edmund Hartley, who chaired the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, and Dr. Marcus Whitfield, whose medical practice catered exclusively to royal family members and cabinet ministers. The third man was younger, perhaps 35, with the pale complexion of someone who spent considerable time in artificial light. They moved around the equipment with clinical precision, monitoring gauges, adjusting valves, making notations in leather-bound ledgers. Dr. Whitfield wore surgical gloves while handling glass vials filled with dark liquid, passing them to Sir Edmund, who secured them in custom-fitted cases lined with velvet. The temperature must remain constant, Doctor, Whitfield murmured, his voice carrying the authority of years spent in operating theatres. Any deviation compromises the entire batch. Lord Pemberton was explicit about the timeline. Lord Pemberton. My employer was not merely aware of this hidden laboratory. He was directing its operations. The facility survey, my careful documentation of missing spaces, had been orchestrated to ensure I would eventually discover this chamber. But why? The younger man noticed my presence first. Rather than alarm, his expression showed resignation, as if my arrival had been anticipated. Dr. Whitfield, he said quietly. Can we have a visitor? Both older men turned toward my hiding place with expressions that suggested disappointment rather than surprise. Sir Edmund removed his surgical gloves with deliberate care and approached the passage entrance. Mr. Harrison, I presume? Lord Pemberton said you might find your way here eventually. Please join us, good Doctor, Whitfield added, his tone carrying the same calm authority he likely used with patients facing terminal diagnoses. Your presence simplifies certain administrative matters. I had 2 choices: retreat through the passage and spend the rest of my life wondering what I had witnessed, or step forward and learn truths that would forever change my understanding of the institution I had served for 6 years. Curiosity, that persistent flaw, chose for me. The laboratory was larger than the passage had suggested, extending beneath both the club's foundation and the adjacent gardens. Victorian engineering at its most ambitious, hidden construction that had been completed during the building's original development, not retrofitted decades later, as I had assumed. 1947, Hardy, Sir Edmund said, noting my examination of the facility. During the post-war reconstruction, Lord Pemberton's grandfather recognized that certain medical research required privacy that traditional institutions couldn't provide. The glass vessels contained human blood, I realized. Not stored blood for transfusions, but blood being actively processed, refined, concentrated into compounds that Dr. Whitfield handled with the reverence typically reserved for sacred relics. The membership of the Whitmore Club, the younger man explained, extends beyond those who simply gather upstairs for dinner and conversation. Some members require more specialized services. Services that medical ethics committees might find questionable. The warm air I had felt was generated by incubation equipment designed to maintain precise temperatures for biological materials. Specialized services for whom? I managed to ask, though my voice barely functioned. Dr. Whitfield exchanged glances with Sir Edmund before responding. Individuals whose continued vitality serves interests larger than personal vanity. Cabinet ministers facing crucial votes. Bank chairmen during economic crises. Judges presiding over cases that affect national security. He gestured toward the glass apparatus. Age, illness, fatigue. These are obstacles that can be temporarily overcome through careful application of biological enhancement. The blood processing equipment wasn't creating medicines. It was manufacturing youth. Concentrated vitality extracted from willing donors and administered to people whose decisions shaped empires. The Whitmore Club's true membership consisted not of those who dined upstairs, but those who received Dr. Whitfield's treatments in chambers even deeper than this laboratory. The donors, I whispered. Where do you... Volunteers, Sir Edmund interrupted firmly. Young men and women from universities, financial institutions, government departments, individuals whose careers benefit significantly from Whitmore Club patronage. They donate regularly, safely, and receive compensation that ensures their loyalty and discretion. The younger man stepped closer, and I noticed the small bandage on his inner arm, the slight pallor that suggested recent blood loss. He wasn't just an assistant. He was a donor, one of the sources for the concentrated vitality that kept Britain's power brokers functioning at peak capacity during critical periods. And now you understand, so Dr. Whitfield said, why your discretion is essential. Lord Pemberton expected me to find this place, I said, understanding finally beginning to penetrate my shock. The survey, the measurements, it was all deliberate. Sir Edmund nodded. Your background check revealed certain qualities, 6 years of impeccable discretion. No family ties that might compromise loyalty. A practical man who understands that institutions sometimes require unorthodox methods to serve larger purposes. They were recruiting me, not as a donor. My 53-year-old blood held little appeal for their processes. As a guardian, someone to ensure the laboratory remained concealed, the operations undisturbed, the donors healthy and willing. The previous facilities manager, Dr. Whitfield explained, served admirably for 32 years before his retirement to a comfortable estate in Cornwall. Lord Pemberton believes you possess similar dedication. The choice was implicit but clear. Join their conspiracy or face consequences that would make retirement impossible. Yet as I stood in that warm chamber, surrounded by equipment that violated every principle of medical ethics, I felt less horror than fascination. These men had discovered methods to extend human capability beyond natural limits. They wielded biological tools to maintain stability in institutions that governed millions of lives. The donors volunteer, I said, seeking confirmation. Or they're not coerced. University students receive full scholarships, the younger man replied. As government clerks advance rapidly through civil service ranks, bank employees find themselves fast-tracked to executive positions. Everyone benefits. The arrangement was symbiotic, not exploitative. 27 years have passed since that November evening, and I have never questioned my decision to accept Lord Pemberton's offer. The Whitmore Club's hidden purpose has remained perfectly concealed, its operations conducted with the same discretion that characterizes all truly important work. I have watched Prime Ministers receive Dr. Whitfield's treatments before crucial negotiations. I have seen aged judges emerge from the deeper chambers with renewed vigor to oversee cases that shaped legal precedent for generations. The blood that flows through these hidden passages has maintained Britain's stability through economic crises, terrorist threats, and political upheavals that might otherwise have toppled lesser nations. The donors continue to volunteer, their compensation generous, their advancement assured. University graduates become cabinet ministers by 40. Junior bankers find themselves directing monetary policy before their peers complete basic training. The system rewards everyone according to their contributions. But some mornings, When I wake with the phantom sensation of warm air against my palm, I remember the moment I chose to descend those metal rungs into darkness, the moment I traded my ignorance for knowledge that can never be unlearned. The Whitmore Club's membership roll still reads like a directory of British power. The difference is that now I understand how that power is truly maintained, not through tradition or privilege, but through the quiet circulation of vitality between generations, ensuring that those who govern never succumb to the weaknesses that limit ordinary men.